Hello! Today we're going to be jumping into one of Center's best base spots for small tribes. This is, or at least it used to be, right? And we're going to see how it's changed. So we're going to jump into the water here and see how it's changed and see if it's still a good spot. Now this is an entrance to the underworld. So let's pop up on the map here. So as you can see, we are near 34.5 and 58.9. And if you swim out into the water, so let me give you a better view here. So there's the archway there coming through this river. If we pull up the map, you can see we're in the top river on the middle islands. And right as it comes, after you come through that archway where this starts to curve around and go back that way, there's a entrance right here. And it's a water entrance, which makes it a lot better because it makes it a lot harder for people to use cannons and stuff against you in here. So you have to, the enemy has to swim down to get in, right? And of course, there's a second entrance, which we'll definitely be checking out as well. But this is probably the weakest entrance here. Then you come down and through the water. Now in ASE, there used to be a place where you could stand, yeah, and there's no water, so you can run an electric gen right here and set some defenses here if you want. But I think if you do that, don't put too many because they'll interfere with the defenses up there. And if an enemy is above your defense, directly above your defenses, they can do tricks to take your defenses out. But yeah, so this oxygen spot's still here if needed. I can't believe they haven't taken this out. And then you swim around the corner here. This is a great place to fill with sharks and tusos. Makes it hard to get in. Of course, you want to leash them somehow. Alright, whistle them to a passive dino or whatever so they can't just drag them up there. Bring them up top and launch them with a giga. You can fill this area full of just walls and junk and stuff they have to blow up and make a bunch of and just make a bunch of basically noise in your tribe logs so you can figure out that somebody's raiding you pretty quickly. Then you come up out of the water here. Alright, this is usually where your first set of defenses would be. You better put a bunch of turrets up in here. I'll take these slippers off. It's really dark in this room. But yeah, you put a bunch of turrets up in here. In ASC, of course, you would do walls in ASA. It's probably, if you can do it, it's kind of wide. You might just be able to put turrets along those walls and ceiling. And then, of course, use structures to block people from just running past the turrets. But if you start putting turrets on structures, it's kind of easy to take them down in 6 times damage, which this should be 6 times damage. We'll test in a second. But yeah, it shoots them before they can get out of the water. And then, so it makes it a little harder for them to get in here. And of course, this part's the easiest part to get past. But you want to do slowdowns everywhere you can. Alright, and then we have the drop down. Alright, so let's test out 6 times damage first. Let's see. What did I punched it? No, I didn't mean to punch it. Alright, we'll put another one down. Okay. What did we get? Oh yeah, 6 times damage still going on in here. Right, and then if I remember correctly, so there's a couple of places, it looks like they're still here. There's a couple places in here where you can kind of put, sorry, the grass in the way, where you can put defenses on these ledges as they drop down. Keep in mind this is 6 times damage most of the way down this hole here until you get to the bottom. But you can put a few defenses here and there or up around on these ledges. Of course, now that we can snap them to walls, I guess that's not really a thing. You can just snap them to walls. I can deal with it. But again, using platform dinos and other tricks. Yeah, when platform dinos includes the new platform that comes with the Frontier back. If you guys don't know, that thing is devastating. So they can just drop stuff down here and blast anything you have on the way down. Then what really made this strong was this tunnel here was very thin. You couldn't hardly get anything through it. So we'll have to check that out. Oh, and another thing that made this strong was 6 times damage ends about right here. So let's test that when we get down to the ground here. And see if that's still the case. 2, 3, yeah. No 6 times damage down here. So this is 1 times damage kind of cave. Alright, so that makes it a lot better. Makes it, a lot of the strategies for blasting down your structure and stuff take longer, take more resources. And that's just it. The more resources your enemies spend, the harder it is. The sooner they have to leave if they don't have enough. Of course, some people, some tribes have infinite resources, and you're pretty much doomed. Alright, this is a great cave for smaller tribes because you can do all kinds of stuff. There's a great way to defend this when Genesis... Is it Genesis 1? Yeah, that has the spiders. You can hang out up here on the ceilings with spiders and rip people off their mounts. And if you're defending this online, this is a nice little tunnel here. The great thing is flyers work in here. That's good and bad, right? It means Quetzals can come in here with their platforms. But you can also defend this with wyverns and RGs and other things like that. And you can come in here and pick players. So yeah, this tunnel, not nearly as thin as it used to be. That's what made this this spot really good, was this area here. You couldn't really walk up areas or down it. So it's much wider now. But you can do more with it now too, as a base. But I don't know if I would do this with a small tribe anymore. And this is different as well. This is much... So tunnel just seems longer, much longer. You can definitely probably get a couple hundred turrets all the way through there. A couple of different sections. 1, 2, something near the... I guess I should go over what you would do in the drop down instead of placing. So what a lot of tribes like to do in here is place a bunch of turrets on the ground right here and just have it shooting up and killing anything that's falling. It's a great way to get your turrets LOS'd. What you would do is you would set them up along the edges of the walls. A few turrets here and there, a few above to shoot down as they try and drop past. And then most of your turrets should be like over in this tunnel here, shooting out, and that way. That way they can't just drop down on top of them and block them with stuff. And you'd want to push them a little bit back as well, so they can't just drop something right there and completely LOS your turrets. So you'd put most of your turrets back here, probably like 60 of them. And then you'd put another 40 in here. Around the edges of the walls up there a little bit. To just make sure to drop a thatch foundation, check for 6 times damage, don't put anything above, you know, the 6 times damage line. Of course, if you have, once you've set up your initial defenses, if you can come up and you have your defenses up here in the top, right, where you have your wall, or what are your turrets along there, if they're not detected, if there's room, so you have your 100 turrets here, your 100 at the bottom. And then if there's room in the middle, you could put some turrets in the middle, but there probably won't be. You could also put some turrets back here to fire at the people over there as well. That distance, with that distance, I think it would just barely fire here. So it might not, so they might just be able to drop past and ignore most of them if you put them all the way over here. I know that used to be some tribe strategies, so. But yeah, as a group of, I've played with this, I've held this with just like 3 or 4 people against very large tribes. So it's definitely a great one for small groups. The water entrance is really hard to get through if you're online. You can defend this really well with grapples, sharks, and tusos. Alright, let's head down. Of course, you would place turrets all along in that water too to help bolster your defenses with your tusos and sharks and stuff, to make it just a little bit harder for the enemy. Alright, and then of course, once you got that wall here, or not wall, anyway, once you got your turrets placed around here, I mean, it could be a wall. I don't reckon. This is 1 times damage, so we might be able to get away with a wall, but I'd be careful. If you do use a wall, make sure to anchor them correctly. I believe I've shown videos where you can anchor them, and basically you would just come back however many foundations back and anchor them back to the back of the foundation and up into the ceiling, but try and do it in such a way you don't LS, such as using double doors and things like that. Alright, then of course you would place more, another 100 turrets every chance you could in here. So about this far back should allow you to place another 100 here. Alright, so you have lots of stopping points coming this direction. And of course you'd be spamming everywhere. And then once we get back in here, well, I don't know. You might not be able to get 100 turrets in the middle and 100 turrets back into this main chamber here. This should be the main... Yeah, this is the main chamber. Where it drops down here and goes down to another entrance. Alright, this is the great room. You can breed all kinds of stuff in here. Alright, I have raised armies of trikes and stegos in here. You can raise gigas and other things like that as well. You won't be able to raise as many at a time in here. You can set up an awesome crafting station. Oh, we've even had a gotcha tower going in here with 4 gotchas on it, all coming down to one point where we could pick them up and just collect a ton of gotcha crystals. So you can do a lot of cool stuff in this. You have a lot of room in here. You can do a lot of cool stuff with it. And it keeps players from being able to attack you from above, right? If you don't know about Ark, if somebody can get above you with a platform dino, and now, of course, the Frontier Pack, you're pretty much screwed. So, and you also only have to protect, one direction, instead of having to protect 4 directions, which helps concentrate your turrets and makes it a lot harder for someone to get to you. Once cliff platforms come out, you can place a cool little cliff platforms up here and create a nice little chandelier shooting down, so anybody trying to come up underneath this gets shot. So you can put like 20, 25 turrets on that up there. You might even still be able to do that now with triangle foundations, or just placing turrets on along the wall up there to shoot down as they try and walk into here. And you'd place your wall probably about here. And yeah, you would have to use a wall at this point, because of how open this is. You would definitely have to use a wall here. But if you build your wall correctly, it shouldn't be a big deal. No matter how many pieces they take out of the front piece, you'll have it anchored to the left, right, and behind. And so it won't fall down just because they're blowing pieces of it up. And just make sure your turrets are not all setting on like the same piece of structure. No more than 2 turrets to 2, maybe 3 turrets max to a piece of structure. That way, if that gets blown up, you only lose 2 or 3 turrets instead of all of them. And then, of course, you would want, if you're being raided, you want to be rebuilding everything as quickly as possible. And because they have almost no real movement in here, right? There's more than they used to. Sniping, you can use some really good sniper rifles through here. There's nowhere for them to dodge or hide. I mean, I guess they could technically hide behind little outcrops and stuff like this, but what I mean is it's a straight path. There's nowhere you really have to look to find them to aim, and so it's pretty easy to just shoot them as they're coming down through here. Blast them off the back of their gigas, things like that. And again, you can pick them. That makes a huge difference. You're in here fighting them with RGs and picking them off their dinosaurs and eating them. It's so yeah, a small group of people really can hold this really well. And then you can get a cool crafting station in here. So you can get a whole bunch of like deadies in here and a tech replicator. And when an aberration comes out, you can get a zip line kind of thing going and zip line back and forth across all your deadies and stuff. But yeah, you can definitely get a good crafting station, a bunch of breeding going on in here. When the Genesis comes out, you can get gotchas in here, build gotcha towers in here. It's not an amazing gotcha tower, not like you're going to see on some of these big tribes have, but yeah. And then all along here, this is a great place for building out shelving and putting your tames on. All right, and just having a bunch of breeders all along down in this pathway here. And because of those turrets over there, you can't put a defense down until you get way down here. I think the first place you're going to put a defense is probably here-ish. You can probably get some turrets around this corner here. But this shouldn't be the part you're defending, so we'll go farther down to where you're really defending. This would be like, if they got to this point after coming up that way, you're probably on your last legs and just trying to, get all your stuff out before they get in. So you'd have 1 or 2 people evacuating everything if they're at this point, while you're having other 1 or 2 people fighting them and keeping them from getting in. Anyway, so we'll head down, and let's see. Oh no, did they remove it? You got a lot of this. Seems, I don't know, this seems longer than before, but maybe not. Maybe not. What's going on here? Oh, it's still here. Oh, it's still here. Now I'm as short as you can get, which means I'm about the height of a dodo. All right, so this is technically a crouch point. You're not going to be able to get hardly any dinos through this. I'm not even sure a turtle will fit through this. But even if a turtle does fit through this, it's not a big deal. As long as you have your turrets set to shoot them. If your turrets aren't shooting them, then you're not detonating their C4, and they can just walk C4 dinos in there, but still. Let's see. Yeah. So this would be where you would defend at, right? You'd want your turrets set up that direction, so they fire to right here. You don't want them firing through the crouch point. Alright, you want them firing to the crouch point. That way they can't stand on this side and back up a trike or a stego or something and then set behind it and soak. And yes, you can lay behind dinosaurs and soak with them. Alright, so if players have their turrets set to players only, you can still park a dino, get out, and sit under its tail and soak that way. You can also soak with dead dinosaurs. So that's always fun, right? So if you're online and you see somebody soaking with a dead dinosaur, go munch it. Don't let them do it. Alright, so you would set your turrets. Like I said, I have a video that tells you the turret range, so... But you would just measure it out with your foundations and then come back up in here. Now, the problem is, this is new-ish. These are way too pronounced, the kind of LOS. But if you have high-up turrets as well, they shouldn't be able to LOS all of them here. Yeah, you definitely want to make sure you have some turrets with a line of sight here so they can't run up here and swap armor. You know, pop a beer and things like that and continue rocket running on foot. And you definitely want to have a mixture, right, of tech and heavies. You're going to want tech turrets to push anybody who's trying to rocket run this back. Alright, so you would put your turrets probably... Let's do a quick measurement. I think it's like 20. So let's see. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this should be out of tech rifle range and about right. So this we would need to put foundation down to do the real measurement, but that should be about right. I'm so used to counting steps when measuring them that this should be about right. So where you can see, okay, there we go. Where you can see this. Here, this rock formation, this is probably where your turrets are going to go. And then you'll definitely want to make sure you have tech turrets up high, push players back, and if they somehow get in here and uncrowd a dino and get on it, it can shoot them off. Tech turrets up high can shoot players off of stegos. Alright, and these will be a problem as well for LOSing turrets, but you can also put turrets on them. Right, you could set turrets upside down on them, and then they would fire down there, but they wouldn't fire through this, right? But they would fire at anybody trying to hide here. See? And then, so you have a line of sight. You don't need all 100 turrets firing at them at one time as soon as they step through this, right? So if you have turrets staggered out around a little bit so they get caught by them as they can get shot by more as they come through here, it can mess up a strategy for line running where you run in a straight line. And making all the turrets target the person in the front of the line and then targets the next and the next. You stagger some turrets and even place some turrets back on this up high. So it shoots them in the back and down at them as they come through here. That could really help out as well. Because, like I said, it messes up the line strategies running in a line. Rushing through on terror birds, things like that. So, although a terror bird shouldn't fit through that, but it might. I would definitely double check that. I would always set up and assume that somebody knows how to get dinosaurs through something like that. I'm not going to tell you guys how to do it. I know I've talked in my past videos about how you can push stegos through certain things. But it's a form of meshing, even though it's not meshing, right? Nothing's staying in the mesh. You are traveling through the mesh to get somewhere it's not supposed to get. And see how thin this is. This is much thinner than it used to be. So you can definitely push stegos and other things through it if you can get them right up against it. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, and this is maybe thick enough it won't happen, but definitely don't count on it not happening. Always be online to defend just in case. Alright, so we'll come back through here and down to the underworld, and we'll check out where the rest of where you can place stuff. And then I want to say, does 6 times damage start again back down here? I'm not sure. I want to say it doesn't, but let's just double check. And no 6 times damage yet. We'll double check as we get further down. So this is definitely different. This path is designed a little differently than it was. So this is cool. This little thing here. So this little plateau here would be devastating. Yeah, I don't know. you're putting defenses down here, this might not be great. You could set up a fob on it, but as you see, it has a big LOS issue. But an enemy attacking you might set up a fob on it. You can even sit up here and attack people trying to come up this way. Kind of like a tower defense little area. But of course, you can just sprint around and get around by going around that. So, not a great strategy. Alright, but the next good point, see how far down the next good point is on whether you can get more turrets. Okay, there it is. This is the next good point to hold. And based on how curves and stuff, you can probably only get 100 turrets down here if you're still going to have 100 turrets up at that next crawl point. This is another choke point, right? You can place 100 turrets. I'm going to say maybe about right here. Again, measure it with a maximum turret distance so that your turrets are firing, again, right to the opening. Not through. This is a bit bigger, but still, it's still a choke point. It's still helpful, right? And it's a much wider choke point. So you'd probably want your turrets firing to about right here, so that it's in the choke point a little bit. And the reason you didn't want it on the other one, because the other one's too thin to fire directly in the middle of that choke point. And again, like I said, as thin as it was, you could back up bigger dinos like stegos and stuff and lay behind them. That's not an issue. Stego might even fit through here. No, yeah, it might be able to walk through at this end at an angle. I don't think it'll go straight through. I think it can zigzag through here, which is, actually a decent defense. Even if it can't just walk straight through, it has to zigzag through. It's slow down, all right? So if you have turrets hitting about here, that's good. And so you'd have them back there, and then come out to this big open cave. And let's double check. I want to say it's not, but some of these areas right around the edges of the underworld are 6 times damage. So 2, 3, no. Okay, still not 6 times damage, which is good. And so then the enemies can fall and come in from out here. Now, you could build on this side of this and have a big wall to fight from and stuff and hold them there, but I mean, then they can bring Brontosaurus and Paracers and different things like that, and platform dinos, Quetzals. So if you're built on this side, it makes it a lot harder for them to do that, and it makes it easier for you to defend. So I think this, it's hard to say in ASE. I don't know. I want to say this was bigger in ASE. This wasn't much of a choke point here. So they may have made this just a little, they made it a little bit weaker and a little bit stronger. But for the most part, it's still going to be good. It's like I said, for a non-rat hole base, this is one of the strongest bases for a smaller tribe. A larger tribe wouldn't have enough room to breed all the dinos they need to be breeding, but if you're a smaller tribe, you can only handle a certain amount of dinos at a time anyway. And like I said, I bred up to 200 trikes at a time in this base solo. So, and I still have plenty of room to breed more. So yeah, you may not be able to breed enough to keep up in a war where you're losing 1,000 dinos a day, but for a small tribe, that shouldn't be an issue, and this should be a lot easier to hold with a smaller group. To hold this cave, I would recommend anywhere between a 6 to 10 man tribe. If you're a 3-man tribe, you could probably hold it a little bit, but it is a more well-known location. So, and it's an entrance to Underworld that people like to use. So it's also a real possibility people will just be mad at you for being in here and constantly attacking you. So keep that in mind as well. It'd be easier to hold with more people. I'll put this Underworld entrance between somewhere around a 7 or an 8 for a small group. It's limited on what you can breed in it, is the only reason it's not going to get more, but it's really powerful and strong to hold. It's, again, 1 times damage, not 6 times, so it makes it a lot stronger. And it has points where you can avoid some of the more OP items that have been added to the game. And if you're online, if you're offline, every cave base will fall, every non-cave base will fall, every rat hole will fall. So we can't really use that as a reason to give it a score. If you're online holding this with anywhere between 3 to 10 people or more, you won't have you'll be able to hold this against a very large tribe pretty easily. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button. Have an awesome day.